Could rising tensions between Donald Trump and Iran send oil prices skyrocketing to $200 a barrel? The potential fallout of a conflict in the Persian Gulf could shake the global economy, so let's dive into what this all means. The tension between the United States and Iran isn't anything new. It's a complicated relationship that goes back decades, starting with the 1979 Iranian Revolution. The U.S. lost its ally in Iran, and since then, relations have been rocky, to say the least. Fast forward to 2018, when President Donald Trump withdrew from the Iran nuclear deal. The deal, which was designed to limit Iran's nuclear program in exchange for lifting sanctions, was thrown out the window under Trump's maximum pressure strategy. This led to renewed sanctions that crippled Iran's economy and raised tensions. But it didn't stop there. Remember in 2020 when Trump ordered a drone strike that killed Iranian General Qasem Soleimani? That set off a dangerous period where both sides were teetering on the edge of war. Trump's administration continued to issue threats to Iran, and now, with Trump still being an influential figure in U.S. politics, his rhetoric continues to raise alarms. Why does this matter so much, especially when it comes to oil prices? Iran plays a massive role in the global oil market. It holds about 10% of the world's proven oil reserves. But even more critical is Iran's control over the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most vital oil shipping routes. Almost 20% of the world's oil, that's nearly a fifth of all the oil we use, passes through this narrow waterway. If a conflict breaks out and Iran decides to block or disrupt shipping in the Strait of Hormuz, the global oil supply could be severely choked, and that would send oil prices soaring. Imagine a scenario where the strait is shut down, even for a short time. Oil markets would panic, and prices could spike, potentially reaching $200 per barrel. That's the fear driving much of the current anxiety around Trump's threats and U.S.-Iran tensions. We've seen oil price spikes before during periods of conflict and geopolitical instability. Let's take a quick trip down memory lane. In 1973, the Arab oil embargo caused oil prices to quadruple. In 1990, during the Gulf War, oil prices temporarily surged. And in 2008, oil prices hit almost $150 per barrel. Not from a war, but due to a combination of supply concerns and growing global demand. Now, if a conflict with Iran breaks out and oil jumps to $200, the consequences could be massive. The cost of transportation would skyrocket, sending prices of everything from groceries to consumer goods through the roof. Gas prices could easily double, inflation would shoot up, and central banks would be scrambling to control the damage. Now, let's talk about the economic impact. If oil prices hit $200, we're looking at inflation kicking into overdrive. Energy is a core part of almost everything we buy. When oil prices rise, so do the costs of production, transportation, and ultimately, the price of goods and services. In this scenario, central banks would have to balance fighting inflation with the risk of slowing down economic growth. It could lead to recessions, job losses, and businesses cutting back on investments. Even countries that export oil might struggle because the shock to the global economy would reduce demand. And that's the double-edged sword here. Higher oil prices don't just hurt consumers, they also slow down the entire economy. But oil prices aren't the only concern. A conflict with Iran would likely have huge geopolitical consequences. The Middle East is already a tinderbox of rivalries, and a U.S.-Iran war could draw in other regional powers. For example, Saudi Arabia, Iran's regional rival, would almost certainly be involved. Israel, which sees Iran as a major threat, could also engage. And then there are Iran's allies, like Hezbollah and various Shiite militias, that could retaliate by attacking U.S. interests across the region. Even global powers like Russia and China might play a role. Both have economic and military ties to Iran, and they could complicate any U.S.-led efforts to contain the conflict. So, this isn't just about the U.S. and Iran. It's a potential powder keg for the entire region. So how do we avoid this nightmare scenario? Diplomacy is the key to de-escalating tensions. While the Iran nuclear deal is a controversial topic, it showed that diplomacy can work. A new diplomatic effort, possibly involving not just the U.S. but also European nations, China, and Russia, could help stabilize the situation. At the same time, countries need to look at long-term strategies to reduce their reliance on Middle Eastern oil. Energy diversification is critical. Investing in renewables like wind, solar, and even hydrogen could help buffer the global economy against oil supply disruptions. The more we reduce our dependence on fossil fuels, the less vulnerable we are to these kinds of geopolitical shocks. But with diplomacy, energy diversification, and smart planning, we can avoid the worst-case scenario. What do you think? Could this crisis be avoided? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay informed about global issues that affect us all. Thanks for watching.